Amitabh Sinha, this is embarrassing from the government's perspective. You present a scheme which is supposed to bring transparency. The fact is it doesn't bring any transparency. There is greater anonymity. The State Bank of India knows. The State Bank of India is a public sector bank. The perception would be that the SBI would naturally, if asked by the government, inform the ruling party of the day who is funding the opposition. There's no way of knowing that, but that charge can always be leveled. And nobody else is any the wiser. So how was this scheme working to enhance transparency? The question very clearly in the eyes of the Supreme Court judges couldn't be answered properly by the government, which is why they struck it down.
Thank you, Rahul, for giving me the opportunity to speak something which is very, very important for the Indian democracy now, today, especially. With all respectful, submissions for Mr. Qureshi, not as person, but as election commissioner, and Ms. Anjali, let me give you my mind. So, as a Supreme Court practicing lawyer with full responsibility, I am giving this statement, so don't be afraid. I am saying that if the Right to Information Act is applicable, the right to information is applicable, the yardstick should be for everybody, meaning all institutions, for executive, for legislative, for judiciary as well. So my point is very clear. If the yardsticks are common and equal, then that right to information should be applicable to the decisions of the collegium also.
That's not the answer to the question. The question is around electoral bonds, and the question is about how you promised that the scheme would enhance transparency, whereas in reality it didn't.
Rahul, give me only uninterrupted, only 1 minute. I am repeating this point of argument everywhere, and then as usual, people and the channels are really scared about the Supreme Court's arrangement. That's why they are curtailing my point. But my point is now clear. Now I am coming to those points. See, Mr. Qureshi was the election commissioner during that black money time. See, black money is very, very important to corrupt the political process. And why I am telling you, I am not here as the advocate for any political party. I am here as a Supreme Court lawyer and a citizen of the country. Here, my point is very clear that if the transparency was being planned, why the timing is very important. Why it happened only 2 months, 3 months before this election. So in Ram Janmabhoomi case, the case was deferred for next election. Here, the system was running, but never mind. I am not going to.
You're not answering the question. You're just dancing around in circles without answering the question.
I am coming.
You have to come very quickly. If you're a lawyer, you should get to the point faster, sir.
That point. I am coming to the point. The basic problem is the percentage of grant, percentage of the donation. The percentage is coming because, see, basic theory is that if I have faith in any government or any policy of any government, I will certainly try to think that government should come back. Number one. Number two, if I am...
No, but none of this answers the question of how... I want to go across to Aditya Shankar Prasad. I've given you an opportunity, you haven't been able to explain. Aditya Shankar Prasad, the government hasn't been able to convince the courts that electoral bonds enhance transparency. Any right-minded person would say that there was high opacity which existed previously. The opacity continued, and therefore the Supreme Court has struck this down. And it's quite embarrassing for the government because you presented it in a fashion that it was meant to enhance transparency, but the lordships don't seem convinced at all.
Well, certainly they have their own entitlement to understand the implication of the law. But let's go back to 2017 when the law was being formulated. This was a novel conception that was brought to the country for the first time. The concept of electoral bonds for political donation. Now, whatever the concept is, it was a novel concept. The judgment has come out today, and surely the Supreme Court has laid down certain points on which some consideration is required to be done. But shouldn't there be a process in which there should be some kind of legitimacy when it comes to electoral funding? I mean, I fail to understand the logic behind it. at least
No,
a
but that's
novel
not answering the question. The question is, how did the process in the way that it was set up enhance transparency? I mean, it benefited the government. 60% of the funds went to the BJP, that we know, but it didn't really serve the purpose with which these bonds were brought by Mr. Jaitley.
I think it's too early to judge on that, because it was a concept which has just been started some time
No,
back.
we've had it we've had it now for 7 years. That's enough time to judge whether I think the elections are getting more transparent or not through electoral bonds. They weren't.
No, I think, Rahul, you have a very valid point, but I want to just highlight one point. You see, the Supreme Court has made certain observations, and the Supreme Court has been very categorically critical of the government insofar as the electoral funding is concerned. I think it's a detailed judgment which one will have to scrutinize, because we've just gotten the part of that order. Need to understand that in what context it has been said. But certain key observations that have been made by the Supreme Court is very relevant for the evolution of India's democracy, is what I understand. And surely this might be an anti-BJP judgment or anti-Congress judgment. As a lawyer of the apex court and as somebody who believes in the Constitution of India, I think it is surely a very welcome stand that the Supreme Court has taken to bring in more accountability and transparency. But having said so, as a lawyer of the court and as an Indian citizen, I respect the judgment of the court. We need to understand in what are the conditions on which the Supreme Court has mandated an order of this nature. But probably there might have been some difference of opinion, but only when the judgment comes about, one can go through it and understand.
S.Y. Qureshi, from what I understand from government sources, they're planning to move to the Supreme Court seeking a review, and when they seek a review, the argument that they're going to make is that this is the rule with which the scheme was brought. You can bring it in with effect from the future, that anybody who donates now knows that his name will be made public, and then they can decide whether they wish to vote or not, whether they wish to donate or not. But you can't change it retrospectively. You can't say now make your names public. Nobody will have any faith in any system, because if that is the premise under which the donation was made, can that premise be changed retrospectively? How do you explain that, S.Y. Qureshi?
No, the scheme and the law which was passed, the Supreme Court after 2 years, 3 years, or 10 years, if it makes it, if it declares it unconstitutional, it has to happen with retrospective effect. And secondly,
no, but that's unfair to all the donors, sir. While
No,
I agree that the scheme
I'm-
is not transparent and it hasn't enhanced transparency and opacity remains as it was, how is it fair? Take any company, I don't want to take any names, take any company who
Just a
donate
minute.
to any party, now suddenly
Well-
their names will be made public.
Then let me come to that. You know, the case was pending before the Supreme Court for 6-7 years, and the donors are not illiterate. They knew that the case could have gone any which way, which it has. Therefore, they would have been conscious of the fact that someday their names will be disclosed.
No, that's a very
Second-
weak argument, Mr.
Just
Qureshi.
a
I'm
minute,
sorry.
just a minute.
No, sir,
Hey,
I'm
hold
sorry.
on.
That's a weak argument you're making.
Hold on. Secondly, if they now challenge the thing, that will only prove the point that there was something secret. There was some quid pro quo which they are trying to hide. If it was an innocent donation to a political party, which happens all the time in all countries, what is there for them to hide?